Good morning, friends, and welcome once again to our webinar series sponsored by the Commission on Higher Education Regional Office 1. Before we continue with our events for today, again, on behalf of Chedro 1 family, we would like to express our deepest gratitude to all of you who have been with us since day one of this webinar series. And for those who have just tuned in, this is a requirement. Please click subscribe to our YouTube channel, that's CHED Regional Office 1. And if you haven't visited our Facebook page yet, please do so. Please visit our Facebook page, that's CHED Region 1, and click like for you to be updated with the latest updates and information you can gain from our office. I would like to inform everybody that our latest statistics reveal that we now have 11,000 likes on Facebook and 4,000 subscribers in YouTube and counting. Last session, when we had our session last June 4, 2020, it's actually the first episode of our season 2, we were able to have 78,000 views in Facebook and 27,000 views in YouTube. And I told you it's still counting, and we're very happy that as the number increases, we are also uh, appreciative of the fact that a lot of our educators and perhaps some students are also learning from our experts that we have invited to be our guests. Last week, we learned a lot from Miss Flower Darby when she discussed to us the basics of online teaching. We received a lot of positive impacts and information informing us that they learned a lot from this session, specifically that it taught us how to save time using technology in transmitting knowledge for our students. And at the same time, we had our friends also from IBM Philippines who discussed to us free digital learning on tech and professional skills of tomorrow. We had Miss Andrea Escalona and we have Miss Abigail Lesaka as our resource persons. And again, thank you very much for joining us last week. And again, thank you for being with us today. We appreciate it that much. Guys, for today, we have again invited the best speakers, the experts in their field to share with us their insights and experiences in their respective fields. For today, we shall be having four experts to be introduced later formally, and our speaker shall be telling us something about how do we maintain a positive outlook despite COVID-19 pandemic, specifically or especially for us in the academe. Secondly, we will have our speaker from China, who will be introduced later formally, who will discuss to us how did a certain university in China um, uh, was able to address the issues presented by COVID-19. This afternoon, we have our speaker from the House of Representatives who will tell us something about sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression equality in the Philippines, or the SOGI bill. And another expert this afternoon will be discussing about how do we take care of our elderly in the higher education institutions now that we're facing the threats of COVID-19. These are very nice topics which I believe you would be able to learn a lot from for our sessions today. So we have four speakers this day. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, again, for those who have just tuned in, please click subscribe for our YouTube channel, that's CHED Regional Office 1, and click like for our Facebook page, that's CHED Region 1. Wow, what a blast. I myself am very excited to learn a lot from our experts this morning. And I believe I don't want to keep you waiting. Please give me now this opportunity to introduce to you our first speaker who will tell us something about, hey, wait, relax, everything is fine. So, even if there's COVID-19 pandemic, life can be as usual. Life could still be a positive thing we can all look forward to. All right, so now I would like to introduce to you our first speaker. Our first speaker is a graduate of his baccalaureate and master's degrees in psychology from St. Louis University in Baguio City, graduating with flying colors as cum laude. Also, he is a master in business administration degree holder from the same university who graduated cum laude. He is at present a member of the Regional Quality Assessment Team of the CHED for Humanities, Social Sciences, and Communication Programs. He is a registered psychologist, a registered psychometrician, a licensed professional teacher, and a career sub-professional and professional passer of the Civil Service Commission. At present, he is the Dean of the Student Affairs Office of St. Louis University in Baguio City. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with pride and honor that I introduce to you our first speaker this morning, Professor Andrew S. Macalma. Hello, sir. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Greetings from Baguio City. Yes, sir.
Is the temperature good there, sir?
Well, it's starting also to actually be warm, but at least it's still something that is tolerable and something that is actually a what do you call this? No? Something that we enjoy here from Baguio City, despite of course the pandemic.
To visit your place again, sir, and God willing, would be able to see each other physically so that we can have
Yes, sir.
more chances of exchanging ideas together.
Yes, Dr. JP. This is my second time, though virtual this time, because I have met you in one of the CHED consultations before. I think that was in Dagupan. And of course, I am so impressed by how you handled and managed the program. And right now, I'm very honored to have you as, of course, the moderator.
I'm humbled by those kind words, sir. Thank you very much. And I'm even happier because I've seen your profile and I said, the name sounds familiar. And when I saw your face a while ago, I already had this inclination that this the hour that we have given you to discuss your topic would be a very nice and worth it time to spend today.
I hope we can measure up to that, Doc JP, because of course, um, this is a really difficult time for us, but I'll try my very best to share at least a little of the things I have read, what I have experienced, and probably the things that we can actually do so that we can be able to embrace, the challenges of living in this new normal that we are in.
Thank you, sir. I cannot wait any longer. So, sir, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Dr. JP. All right. So, good morning, everyone. I hope that all of you are doing great. So let us all thank God for a new day today. Wonderful and hopefully productive at that. But before anything else, although of course I have already been introduced earlier on, allow me to personally thank the Commission on Higher Education Region 1 Administration, headed by Dr. Rogelio T. Galera Jr., Officer in Charge, and Office of the Director for the team that's running this transitioning the education ecosystem to the new normal or teen part 2, and to Dr. Melquiades Ancheta, education supervisor too, who actually helped me a lot in preparing for this, who told me that I have to also relax, okay, in preparation for this. And of course, to Dr. JP, our very energetic moderator today, for all the support. So I am indeed honored and privileged to have been invited here to share and hopefully be able to inspire and motivate you during this time. I understand it's really a difficult time that we are in. I have just come from a very difficult, challenging situation, and I hope I can be able to share to you how I was able to cope with it. Nonetheless, I hope you will respect that I would not be able to share what I experienced, but it's enough that I have to say that I just came from that. I am okay, I'm alive, and that's a good thing to know. All right. So before I officially start my sharing, so again, I have to clarify that this is a sharing. Um, Let me start with probably two activities. So let me start with two activities. So we will be doing that all together. So I hope that wherever you are, you're actually, as you are glued to your laptops or probably in your mobile phones, I hope that you are seated comfortably. So we'll be doing two basic exercises. First, we'll do the anti-stress breathing, and then eventually a very, very basic mindfulness exercise. All right. So I hope you're ready. Okay, let's start with trying to master an anti-stress breathing exercise, which I have done, no? And it's actually very helpful. I hope it will also help you out. All right, so let's go into this one. No? So how do we normally breathe when we are stressed? So normally we do this like, so if you notice, our breathing becomes very fast and of course, eventually also even shallow. Now compare that to our breathing when we are relaxed. When you compare that, when we are actually relaxed, we seem to be filling, okay, our stomach ever so gently with air. That is called diaphragmatic breathing. All right. So join me in this one. Okay. So we'll be doing this. We will be breathing in and we'll be doing 4 counts for that. So 4 counts for that. And then hold our breath for the next 7 counts, and then eventually release or let go of that for 8 counts. So I'd like to repeat, when you breathe in, you do 4 counts, and then you hold it for 7 counts, and then release it for the next 8 counts. Okay, so I hope you're ready. All right, so we do this. So 1, 2, 3, go. Breathe in slowly. Stay still, filled with calm and peace. Let go, be free, release, refresh. All right, so I hope you're able to do that. Anyway, just remember the 3 things. So breathe in 4 counts, hold it for 7 counts, and then eventually release it for 8 counts. So you can do that whenever you feel that somehow your breathing is gonna be tightening, or you are actually in a very difficult situation. So breathing would actually come in as a very basic thing. All right, so that's one. Secondly, I'd like to do, of course, this very basic mindfulness exercise. Okay, so does it sometimes feel that your thoughts are actually everywhere? So in our language, no, kalat tayo and all. Well, we can actually collect our thoughts and ourselves by remembering to be here and now. So being present really helps. And how can we be able to help ourselves on that? All right. First thing is try to notice everything around you. So our eyes can see a lot about where we are. What do we hear? What do we feel in our bodies? The seat probably under us, the floor under our feet. Breathe in and feel the air inside. And then go get a glass of water or probably something to eat. Taste it, enjoy it, and we are present here and now. All right, so I hope you were able to get the 2 things I was trying to share before we actually officially start. So remember mindfulness and our anti-stress breathing exercise, and you can actually be able to do that. All right, so I hope that somehow help you a bit getting into a more relaxed state today. You can actually do that, as I mentioned earlier on, whenever you need to relax a bit. All right. As I have planned to talk at least a little about this one, I plan to make it a little interactive because I believe we can be able to do it. No? So I will be posting a question for you to respond to. No? So I would like you to post your answers on the comment section so that we can all be able to see your responses. So actually, right now on your screen is the question like, how are you? And how did you cope with the pandemic or maintained your well-being during this time? Go. Post or comment on the comment section. All right. As I cannot be able to probably see your comments, I am very, very sure that there had already been a lot of comments posted there. Okay, thank you very much for your active participation. Even when you did not post it, I am very sure you have actually tried to figure out some of your answers probably where you are. Thank you very much for your generosity. Yes, mixed feelings. Some were probably posting, I'm anxious, I got disturbed, it was stressful, it was fearful. While the others were saying, okay lang, I was able to adjust, I was able to embrace the new normal, and I'm okay, and thankful that I am okay today. Well, in an uncertain situation and a pandemic at that, such that we have right now, our feelings are actually justified. This is because they are born out of our personal lived experiences, and that no one can question that. But of course, this has to be tempered in order for us to be able to cope, and that will be our focus this morning. So these experiences are all understandable in the face of this significant challenge. There have been loss of life, rapid changes to our way of life. I know you have noticed that and are trying to debacle that now. and even disrupted plans due to travel restrictions and even social physical distancing. Well, these are measures in our efforts to slow the spread of transmission, and that is very important. Why? Because people are naturally concerned for their own and their loved ones' health and safety. And there's still such uncertainty today. All right. Okay. Hope you're okay. All right. So for this morning, allow me to share to you my objectives for my sharing. When I was preparing my sharing, I did spend some time thinking where I should start. 80 days or more since that lockdown, when ECQ was declared in the middle of March, I was thinking, what should I talk about when we all have been technically full of information about this pandemic? And so, therefore, when I sat down, I actually came out with these three very basic objectives of my sharing today. Number one is for us to be able to understand further the new normal. Although, of course, don't get me wrong, no, we are already in the know. We know what is in the new normal, but it's good to actually start from here and then share and discuss, okay, the coping mechanisms and strategies that we can actually do during the COVID-19 pandemic, or as we say it, the new normal today. And hopefully help you get on a positive outlook during this pandemic or the new normal. Okay, so those are my objectives. So from my understanding, okay, it might be good to start somewhere where we are right now and eventually how we are and will be dealing with it. All right. From my personal understanding, we have come from the pre-COVID and then we went, that was actually history already, the old normal, as we say. And then eventually, in the height of the COVID-19, okay, although we are still here, are trying now to imagine and reimagine and transition into what we now call as the new normal. So, of course, the new normal, we are transitioning here. And I'm very sure this definition of new normal has been different from all places, very specifically here in the Philippines, because I think some of our provinces are still very much in their ECQ, while others are in moderate GCQ. So depending on where the state of your community right now, that would definitely define a bit the new normal that you are in. And of course, as in every transition, and as Professor Vijaya Manikavasgar puts it, but even though many of us have spent weeks dreaming about the day that things go back to normal, re-entry into the real world might not be all smooth sailing. And that is why we are now challenged to actually be, okay, embracing and at the same time trying to live in the here and now. Okay. Now, just what is the new normal? For sure, as I mentioned earlier on, you have read about it. But for our discussion's sake, I would like to define it according to how the DOH RITM has expounded on it. And I quote, the new normal is a new way of thinking about deciding on and doing our usual affairs with an invigorated sense to remain healthy. So basically, you see there, it's a new way of thinking, deciding, and doing our usual affairs. But this time, okay, what is the purpose of why we have to do that and why we transition into this new kind of thinking and deciding? Now, because our challenge is to remain healthy. So the ritm.gov.ph went on to define it as, why do we do it? Now, why do we do and behave this way in the new normal? Okay, there are actually 5 reasons. One, to reduce our vulnerability by keeping a healthy lifestyle. So they want us all to be healthy. That's why we are not allowed to go out and then probably, of course, not wear masks and these things. One thing more is that, of course, they'd like to do away with virus transmission. So all of these protocols will have to be observed. At the same time, why is it that we are not allowed? Why? Because it has, I mean, the contact, no, with a potential disease carrier should also be reduced. Remember, the virus, whenever you're carrying it, it's not just, I mean, of course, we know of the symptoms, but there are also other cases where it is asymptomatic in case. So therefore, anybody can just be carrying them. So it's really very, very important that we have to be careful. and of course, reducing the duration of the infection by establishing effective disease management mechanisms. That's why we have a long list of those, and we have to make sure that we have to know them, because knowing them would allow us to actually cope and be able to embrace the new normal. And of course, in the government, ensuring governance and accountability by putting in place strong health regulation and policies. Now, this new normal, okay, by definition, also had been adopted by our homes. So probably you have set some rules already. You have followed, of course, some guidelines and protocols inside your houses. And more importantly, in our school, and I'll be talking about that later on, how the landscape of our higher education institutions or basic education institutions or schools, no, for that matter, have changed because of this new normal challenges. And more importantly, yes, we know the workplace. And there are a lot of changes right now. Good changes, although of course there are some depressing news about, people will have to be laid, of course, lay out and all from their work organizations, and that is sad. All right. So indeed, this new normal has changed the landscape of our lives. So what did this bring to us? According to Cornane in 2020, very recently, the way we live now in the new normal is very different. Okay, why? So these are actually the points. No? First, masks and gloves may be a commonplace. Well, of course, it depends on where we are in the world. No? But in the Philippines, I guess right now, this is one thing that we have to embrace. In my most recent trip to Japan, no, I have seen that among Japanese, the wearing of masks is a very commonplace already. And for a Filipino who was then an observer there, I'm actually very new to the experience, but right now I already understood why. So it's basically not just protecting yourself, but also protecting others. So apart from that, queuing is now the norm. Okay, wherever we are, be it when we visit health professionals or when we go to shops or grocery stores, I know you have experienced queuing already for more than an hour or hours of that, no, just to be able to get into the grocery store or even in the market, or even getting in a lift. No, like for example, my market experience here in the city where I live, queuing is very much implemented. And what is good is that the city had been very, very creative in helping us out find the right queuing process and at the same time the queuing spaces, why we have to just follow them. Now, another thing that became different was public transportation. Well, in other places, I think this is still very much a challenge and a problem. Now, with social distancing in place, commuters now would have to wear masks and gloves and, of course, be using alcohol, which we do not do before. Right now, we ride in a jeepney where we seem to be cocooned in plastic covered cubicles, just so that we are able to maintain social distancing and then avoid, of course, the sharing of the virus, no, inside the jeepney. And of course, remember, transportation right now would actually require that, okay, a jeepney or probably a bus soon, when it will be allowed, will only be allowed to carry at least 50% of its usual capacity. Okay. Another thing, no, in public, it used to be that we would not care about someone sneezing or coughing. Well, of course, we get to be concerned about it, but it's different right now. When somebody coughs or sneezes in public, we get to have and be placed in a double take, no, whenever we experience that. So we have been conditioned that, of course, we have to be hyper vigilant for the symptoms. That is why whenever we get to meet people who do this in public, we actually run away from them. We look at them and then eventually, of course, be scared. No? So these are now the new things that are happening. Another thing, no, how we live our life will not. It used to be before that when we have holidays, we look forward to them because we know somehow that this will be another chance for us to travel or probably, of course, go to our favorite parks or malls or anything that gets to be planned during holidays. But right now, we'll be starting to spend holidays more in our backyards. Birthdays have become so simplified right now, fewer visitors, and birthday parties are now happening within our inside our homes and all. Okay. And the small things that make up our community have also changed. No? Like in our place, there's a favorite place that I go to whenever I am hungry. There's a barbecue area near, of course, the barangay where I am living here in Baguio. But right now, I cannot find that. And more, no? Small stores or cafes or even the salon that you had been going to had started to close. Why? All of this. Although, of course, in the GCQ right now, no? In the where we are, barber shops and salons have started to open, but again, okay, must be living up to the protocols that are required by the government. And that's, of course, a little change. And the larger sporting landscape has also changed. No? In particular, we know very well that the Olympics, no, that was supposed to have happened in Tokyo, Japan, had been postponed or canceled or postponed, and which will happen, of course, from other time. Apart from that, the way we work and study has also changed. I think this is very obvious because we have been affected one way or the other, because I know a lot of our listeners right now are educators, no? And of course are working in the education institution. And you know very well that that the education that we know has changed. We are now transitioning from the old face-to-face to either the online or the distance learning the modes, no, which of course is a big challenge, no? Especially not only, of course, for our students, but more importantly to us teachers who are preparing them. I'm very sure you have been so attentive to the talk of Dr. Feline Espique when he talked about how can we be able to do distance learning, how do we develop modules, how do we do it, and all. And I'm very sure right now you have already prepared those because the opening of the classes are just a few months away. For our HEIs, I know that they have already are starting to open, no? Especially for the short term or the summer term. And the work that we do has also changed. Why? Due to the social distancing. So many of us shifted working from home to minimize traveling on public transport, and then eventually even gathering, okay, in groups at the office. Zoom meetings have become our new normal. So challenged, okay, those who had not been in such are now challenged to actually learn it, to find their way through so that they be able to join the meeting. Now, even when offices have started to ease out, now the restrictions for office work have started to ease out, we may consciously rotate back into working at the office in shifts, no? So we have groups or shifts that we call, and then or probably, some of us would be embracing work from home on a more regular basis. Even the way we socialize and connect looks very different right now. Of course, social distancing, and social distancing. So no more packing in large crowds when we all have to have a personal bubble of over a meter. A friend was telling me whenever you have to go out, make it sure that, try to imagine when you try to spread your arms and do a full circle, make it sure that you don't touch a person, because otherwise when you're able to touch a person, then you might be close, no? Closer than what the social distancing meter would allow. Right now, um, we will not be able to see our loved ones or even friends. But remember, not seeing them would be for their benefit. So elderly parents and grandparents, our pregnant friends or new parents, those with health conditions that would render them more vulnerable to coronavirus, we're staying away to keep them safe. So in a time when it's more important than ever to stay connected, this can be particularly very challenging for us. So no visits from loved ones and friends from interstate or overseas. No? So I know, no, we all understand as transportation will be a big challenge, but more than anything else, it's now also, again, the spread of the virus that we're trying to prevent. And social greetings have morphed. So we are not anymore allowed to do handshakes, hugs, and even, of course, the usual beso-beso. So I was kidding a friend that beso-beso will now be turned into a braso-braso. Why? Because we'll be doing more elbow bumps and even foot shakes, or just waves from a social distance, which, of course, is a very challenging thing to do. What is the challenge there? it would be difficult to recognize the person you're waving to or the person waving to you. Why? Because of the mask, eventually that covers half of the face and it would be difficult. But that's how it is. And we have to live it out. And the way we dine out has also changed. Well, we're happy that I think majority of us in our where we are and where we live in our provinces are already in the MGCQ. So therefore, dining may now be allowed, but still social distancing will be in place and shared plates may disappear for quite some time. um Also, for those of you who are into buffet dining, I guess this has to also disappear for quite some time, no? Knowing that somehow the spread of the virus may be faster and may be more facilitated because we share utensils, we actually go to the same places and then hold the same utensils, and that could actually be very dangerous. All right, so that's from Corne. Now, so what will normal life be now? No? So of course, you know that the challenge is that we have to adjust to the new normal. So it might be a different place, but that we have to be able to get into it. And we have to be able to make the adjustments. No? Um, for other places, probably the changes might be deeper, especially, of course, that the unexpected nature of the pandemic and its sudden and intrusive arrival in our lives will leave some of questioning whether the world's still a safe place. And of course, that is understandable. Also, there are financial and economic challenges that we have to endure and that we have to live with. In a most recent post from Rappler, um, there is now a projected around 7.3 million, no, people who will lose their jobs amid the coronavirus pandemic. And that would be very, very sad. Well, we have been in, this had been, of course, in the news. We have heard them. And at the same time, it's difficult, but somehow this is a reality that the government should try to look into so that it can be addressed, so that we can be able to help those people who will be losing their jobs. And of course, the third one, despite the seemingly negative vibe that comes with adjusting to the new normal, financial and economic challenges, we have, of course, something to look forward to, no? And it's something which is a silver lining, no, amidst this pandemic. A stronger sense of community. Do you believe that? All right. So the good news is that if there's something that research would tell us, it's that shared experiences of stress can actually bring communities together in a way we may not have experienced prior to COVID-19. No? I guess you agree, no? So you were surprised to have seen how close you have started to become with your neighbors, with friends, with relatives, even far. So when you read the academic literature on natural disasters, as horrible as they are, I'm sorry for that, no? The aftermath is that people help each other and there's often a sense of shared humanity. I think that's something that is quite revealing and very hopeful, especially where we are right now. So that's basically the things that we are in the new normal. I know you have read about it, but it's good that we get to have at least a level understanding about this one. So in short, it has really affected and impacted, okay, our lives, people in varying ways, even on an international scale. And it is understandable that during these times, people may be feeling afraid, worried, or anxious and overwhelmed by the constantly changing alerts and media coverage regarding the spread of the virus. So we are here, and what do we need to do? No? So I think right now, that's the reason why you all got into this webinar and sharing, to be able to somehow discover new things, okay, and at the same time, be able to affirm probably the things that you're doing today. So we go into how do we cope with the new normal, the challenges of the pandemic. So the next slides are basically the meat of my sharing today. No? So I'll be sharing to you some coping tips that we can employ so that we get some control over the situation that we are in right now. As we'll be talking about coping and coping mechanisms, it might be very important to understand that coping can either be problem focused or emotion focused. So let us try to distinguish briefly the two types of coping. So eventually, on your slides right now, okay, I have placed there um, a a tabular presentation about the difference between a problem focus and an emotion focused coping. Of course, you all know about this one. Now, these are the two types. No, all right. So when you are actually addressing a situation that you can change and it can help reduce your stressors, then basically you're doing what we call problem focused coping. And you know that problem focused coping can actually be able to work in that situation. However, this one cannot work in a situation outside our control. No? Why? Because doing problem focused coping can actually can even increase our frustration. Okay? Now, on the other hand, we have what we also call the emotion focused coping. So this emotion focused coping, as we all know, is applicable and at the same time an effective way of helping us out, especially in situations outside our control. No? So how does this work? No? So this one actually helps us reduce our internal stress levels. So later on, we'll get to see like what are some examples of this problem focused coping and emotion focused coping. Okay, so let me try to give you a few examples. Now, when you had been like doing journaling, you had been, of course, doing talking to people or seeing your therapist or talking to a psychologist, that is a good example of an emotion focused coping, right? But there are also other emotion focused coping strategies that we might have been employing and that might be very challenging. So like when you resort to drinking alcohol, all these things, taking drugs, of course these are emotion focused coping which are actually considered bad or not helpful at all. On the other hand, problem focused coping allows you to hit at the concern and at the same time be able to understand further. So when you enrich yourself, when you read about it and you try to tell yourself that this is what I can do because of course somehow I have control on this one, then you are and you might be doing problem focused coping. So in short, there's a basic question that you start. No, so can I change the situation? When you cannot change the situation right now, of course we cannot. No, so therefore we have to use emotion focused coping. So how do we deal with it? No, we don't have any choice. The pandemic is here. So what is it that you have control about? No, practically try to look into your emotional reactions, how you temper them, or help yourself through, so that at least even despite the pandemic, you can actually relax. No, according to Sir Dr. JP earlier on, no? The challenge for us is to be able to relax even in the midst of this pandemic. Now, if you have control over the situation and you can change the situation, if the answer is yes, is this a good time to make the change? No. Well, if the answer is yes, then you can use problem focused coping. If no, then eventually go towards using emotion focused coping. All right. So I hope that the refresher on the two types of coping will help you determine what is it that we can do to help ourselves through this time. On what best coping strategy that we can actually work on. So it's not a question of which is a better coping strategy right now, but I'm very sure a combination of the best coping strategies under both the problem-focused coping and the emotion-focused coping will actually help us a lot in dealing with this. All right. So now we proceed to this. The strategies to cope with the pandemic in the new normal. I hope you're still okay. All right. Even if I can't hear you, I can sense that you are doing well, and that's good enough for me. All right. So, again, it's very important for us to be informed. So, in the following slides are some of mental health and well-being tips and strategies, okay, to continue looking after ourselves and each other during these difficult times. Try to check that which can be applicable for you and that which can help you. So when many things feel uncertain or tends to go out of your control, one of the most effective ways we can manage stress and anxiety that goes with our experience today is to focus on the actions that are in our control. No? I think that's very important. No? So the next slides are some ways, okay, intentional steps, no, that you can actually do so that you can be able to look after your physical and emotional well-being during this challenging time. So, do you have your notes with you? Okay, if you're ready, then we start with this. All right, the first coping strategy is basically a very important thing. No? Learning how to protect yourself and others from COVID-19. I think the Department of Health, our government, had released robust advisories and guidelines recommending important actions that we can all take to protect, okay, ourselves against infection and prevent the virus from spreading and including. So basically, the focus of this advisory was on practicing good hygiene, self isolation, especially when you have the symptoms, and then eventually social physical distancing. So it's very important that we have to realize that we have to learn how to protect ourselves and even, of course, our loved ones. We cannot just be like our old self before, who would not care about, taking care of ourselves or trying to protect ourselves, or even, of course, wearing masks. So that's a basic thing that we could do, no? To protect ourselves and others from this one. So whenever we have to social distance, when we do social distancing, let us remember it's not going away or isolating ourselves, but it's protecting ourselves and, of course, the others, especially when you actually live with other people in your homes. All right. So do good hygiene, self isolation if you must, and at the same time, always practice social distancing. Well, they won't get hurt because they would understand that you're trying to also protect them. All right, that's the first one. The second one is to acknowledge our feelings. Okay? Whatever it is that you are feeling right now, well, know that it's still okay to feel that way. Allow yourself time to notice and express what you're feeling. So it might be good to actually journal about it or talk it with others or channel your emotions. This is very important. Channeling your emotions into something very creative. No? We have seen in a lot of Facebook posts people talking about the new things that they have done, that they have created during this time. And I feel so happy whenever friends would do that. And I would always say, congratulations. No? So this time has allowed them to basically handle, of course, their emotions, their feelings right now while in pandemic, but on the other hand, be able to get into control by becoming productive, learning how to bake, learning how to cook, or discovering that you can do that. Or, very important, no, is in trying to understand and handle your feelings, especially those that are in the now, no, to do mindfulness meditation exercises. It can help you stay grounded in the midst of the emotional storm. So you can now learn how to witness and let the thoughts and feelings come and go in their own time. But the challenge is, and this is the more important thing, not to get overwhelmed by them. So allow yourself to grieve the old normal. So it's natural to miss the old ways. But as with any change, no, okay, it's easy to actually be able to deal with that, no? So throw in a pandemic along with the changes to routines and plans, no, for the weeks and months ahead. It's more important to ever to acknowledge the challenges and difficulties that we face, and that eventually, once you have allowed yourself to grieve, no, then there will be more space to start embracing your new normal. So let go, no, of that. Okay? So allow yourself to grieve in the old normal, acknowledge your feelings, but get over it and be able to handle them appropriately. Okay. The third one is, which I think you have already discovered as very, very helpful, is maintaining your day-to-day activities and a routine as much as possible. While the others have started to slack off because, of course, they are not in the know as to how to handle it, those who are able to get through it, maintaining their day-to-day activities and routines, are those who are able to handle it. No? So it's very important that we have a healthy routine, because this healthy routine can have a positive impact on our thoughts and feelings. I remembered when I was in a very difficult situation just a few days ago. I heard it from a friend. Although, of course, I already know that, but I heard it from a friend na, just maintain, Andrew, you just maintain your routine, try to schedule it, follow that schedule. No? So therefore, when you have to do and go to a meeting, so dress up as if you're going to the office and all. So you have to have a space for where you have that and all. And that routine helped me, of course, break the monotony and probably even the slacking attitude that I'm going into, which would make me even feel, useless, or maybe probably would increase, no, the already brewing anxiety inside. So it helped me a lot. So in short, okay, go back to basics, no? Eating healthy meals, physical exercise. Try to find a way by which you can do that, no? If you have not been walking, stretching, running, cycling before, then find a way now to be able to do that. Small stretching and all. 10 minutes every day to 30 minutes would be very, very good for us, no? Our The internet is a very rich source of some possible exercise programs, especially for starters like us. Okay, so the first thing to do is, acknowledge the fact that you need to go for exercise, and then eventually the next things will happen. So getting enough sleep, doing things that you enjoy. Okay, so even if you're in self quarantine or working from home, there are still a lot of ways by which you can be able to develop new routines and, of course, staying healthy. So eventually that's very important. Or, okay, reading a book, trying out a new hobby or skill, cook a new recipe, play an instrument, learn a new language, learn how to sew or gardening. These things can be very, very helpful. So important here is that you're able to maintain your day-to-day activities and as a routine as possible, and make that a healthy routine. Remember, a positive impact will be experienced on your thoughts and feelings. All right. The next thing is this, no? Staying connected in new ways. Well, remember, we have a big challenge right now, no? We want to stay close, but the challenge is that we may not do, and of course, pay that visit because it may not be healthy. So, what is it that we do, no? So, find a way by which you can still be able to stay connected in new ways. And I think we have been doing a lot of that. But the next thing that would be very important is when we stay connected in people, in new ways, it has to be something that is supportive and at the same time very positive. So avoid toxic connections, because otherwise the toxicity of the connection would even escalate, okay, the negative feelings that are in the present. So receive support and care from others, and receiving them has a very powerful effect, no, in helping us cope with the challenges. Again, no, as I was talking about that experience I had last time, I had this very good boss that I have worked with before, and at the same time a friend right now, who helped me a lot through the process. So the everyday direct messages, and of course the personal messages sent to me of prayers and encouragement, and even pushing me through this one, helped me a lot. No? So I owe a lot to that person, no? To that friend who actually allowed herself to be connected to me and had been sending positive vibes to me. So I was able to talk my concerns through, my thoughts and feelings, and at the same time, it helped me think about my situation and be able to deal with it, which is of course very important. Again, a great way to connect will be found anywhere. No? Try to find a way by which you can be able to do that, and make sure that it becomes positive and comforting. Okay, next. I hope you're still okay. All right. So another thing that we could actually do to cope with our stressful situation right now is Remember that physical distancing does not mean social isolation. I felt that before, and it changed, no, as I experienced positive support and prayers from others, and of course my personal accountability. So I had to help myself through. So how can we be able to still maintain, okay, physical distancing but not social disconnection? Okay, we have been doing that: call, text, or video chat with friends and family. I hope our old folks already enjoyed video chats, which they did not enjoy before. So right now they're enjoying it, and they're even trying to do it on their own. No? Share quick and easy recipes. Okay, all these things. Schedule a workout together, or probably even celebrate birthdays over a video chat. No? I have experienced that, and it was good. No, so we kept the foods in front of us. We tried to, of course, connect, and then we were able to celebrate. So remember, this is not the time to isolate and disconnect. We may be physically far from each other, but that we have to maintain, of course, our social connection. So I hope you can still be able to do that. And we still have time to be able to do that. The next thing that we could actually do, okay, is to contribute. How do we do this? No? So showing care towards friends, family, or even the vulnerable people in our community can be all the more important during times like this. So what is the importance of doing this? Contributing and helping other people creates and fosters a sense of hope, purpose, and even meaning. So why do you send it? You care about a message of encouragement or affirmation now. Cook or pack and deliver a meal to someone in your neighborhood, or even donating to a cause. So these are things that we could actually do. It makes us feel good. At the same time, it delivers a message of what I mentioned earlier on, message of hope, purpose, and meaning. Now, the next thing that we can actually also do is, to keep things in perspective. So in short, the challenge is for us to be able to create and find pockets of joy. This is a big challenge. And if you are able to do that, then eventually you are helping a lot, especially in a situation that's uncertain, like what we do and are experiencing right now. It's natural to have many what if questions in our mind. Like, what are the things in my control? Am I overestimating the likelihood of a worst case scenario, or am I scaring myself too much? What strategies have helped me cope with challenging situations in the past? And what is a small helpful or positive action that I can take now? So in short, try to create packets of joy. We don't need major events to happen for us to feel happy and all, but try to add up small moments of joy, and eventually from there you're able to focus more on the positive side of our situation right now. So always keep things in perspective. Next, seek accurate information. Well, I know we have been warned about this one. So it's very important that whenever we get information and read information, we have to check our sources and the facts. No? So it's very important that we stay informed but not alarmed. For other people, okay, they stay informed and they are alarmed. No? So that's a difference here. Once you're able to stay informed and yet is not alarmed so much on this one, then I hope you're able to cope with the situation. Next, this one, no? Set limits around news and social media. It is understandable that we want to keep informed and, of course, prepared. So at the same time, constantly reading, watching, or even listening to upsetting media coverage can unnecessarily intensify our worry and agitation. So therefore, how do we help on that? No? When you get into the urge of checking, try to pause. No? Try not to go into that. Notice the urge, delay the action, and then let it pass without judgment. So try to schedule only specific time wherein you need to check the news instead. So it's also nice to take breaks from conversations with others about COVID-19 and talk about other better things and happy things. Okay, those that would actually bring positivity. And of course, for us who are in schools or higher education institutions, to stay up to date with university advice and support, as we are all, of course, connected to our institutions. So it's very important that we are able to get updates with our university advice and support where we can actually go to. So I think that's very important. And last but not the least, be gentle and be kind to yourself. Give yourself the space and time to grieve, celebrate, and to feel every emotion in between during this challenging time. So we are living in a situation that never happened before, or at least in our lifetime, and it is impacting each and every one of us in a unique way. So if you find it difficult to adjust to your new normal, it's never too early or too late to reach out to support. And eventually, support would come from um, gentle presence in our lives, people that we trust, and more importantly, probably even talking it with a therapist or a counselor. All right. So I hope that you have taken down notes, no, on the different coping mechanisms that we could do in the new normal. So remember them. Try to work into or try to look into that which will work for you. Now, I'm also in the know that somehow we have here school leaders, no, leaders in your own way who are in the audience right now. And I came across this very insightful, recently released um, bulletin from the American Psychological Association as to how stress management, no, or our leaders today would be responding to the crisis and be able to manage their stress. No, so I'm very sure that as leaders, no, be it a principal, a dean, a president, a vice president, or the department head, or a leader in your grade level, anything that makes you a leader and that gives you a decision making capacity would actually be something which is very stressful today. So I am well aware that that is being experienced right now. So as leaders, they face the pressure on a regular basis, and COVID-19 has intensified the stress surrounding them. So eventually, effective leaders should also learn how to manage their stress when making decisions and when motivating others, especially on that. No? But even the most effective may feel emotionally and physically worn out during the pandemic. It's common. So according to the latest bulletin, no, from American Psychological Association, um, the exposure of the leaders can stress them during this time. Why? This happens, no? Stress takes a toll on the leader's personal well-being and effectiveness in terms of decision making. So it becomes challenging, it limits their creativity, and at the same time, even reduce their concentration, difficult to process. So eventually, people may be led into doing default thinking or even going towards extreme. So therefore, this can probably happen. So they can miss out on opportunities for innovation, fail to message a hope and optimism, especially to the other members. Another thing will be the possibility of doing over control of the situation. So, syempre, of course, no, a sense of control is a stress buffer for leaders. But when they feel a loss of it in a crisis, now it is possible that they will react or become rigid, no, and try to control the crisis response on their own. And this could be very, very stressful. The third one could be isolation. No? So, stress can cause abruptness, irritability, and impatience with other people. So eventually, it can now lead also, no, negative have to it leads to negative effects in terms of professional relationships, dampening people's desire to speak out and even provide information to those who are in charge. So therefore, this can probably happen. And of course, we know very well, without explaining it to you, sleep deprivation, and as a result of that, even of course negative mood. No, so research would show that people want leaders with a very calm demeanor and positive outlook. Unmanaged stress can lead, to displays of negative emotions, anger, irritability, which can actually reduce trust and confidence among the leaders. Although the crisis would seem to be very, very overwhelming, especially to our leaders, it is possible still also for our school leaders to cope with and lead, of course, through the circumstances. So, what are the suggestions coming from psychologists, okay, that can help leaders manage their stress while maintaining and managing high pressure situations? So, these are the things, no? First is for leaders to be able to recognize the physical warning signs of the stress. Why? Because this will allow them to acknowledge that somehow there is something that I need to do. So these physical signs that get to be experienced by them are reminders, no, to take time out for self-care. And that's very important. Otherwise, if no self-care would come in, then eventually the prolonged exposure to that physical warning signs of stress can escalate into something which is more dangerous. So the next one is this, no, pause before making decisions or public announcements. Aha, I understand that somehow in the stress you want it all things to be done very quick, very fast. But even when leaders would easily get into this frenetic nature of the crisis, they have to of course understand that they need to pause, reset, and focus, okay, so that they can be able to contribute to better reception of message or even critical update, no? So what can leaders do? They can adopt a 5 to 10 minute breaks each hour, probably, to assess stress signals and even emotional needs, no? So therefore this will allow them later on when they go back, okay, to deliver their message with calmness, confidence, and at the same time, this break will also allow them to be more clarified and at the same time to be more positive. The third one is, of course, yeah, they have to realize this, prioritized self-care. So in order for them to be able to perform at their best, they also need to recharge, recover, and of course, eventually stay fueled. So research would show the importance of movement and exercise for improving mood and physical well-being. So they should prioritize and go into these restorative activities such as exercise, outdoor recreation, and eventually talking to friends, meditation, repair, a lot of things that they can do for self-care. And then fourth, this is also, I mentioned earlier on that this can be a negative effect of stress, but at the same time, okay, getting into much needed sleep would actually eventually help repair our system. So, of course, everyone would reach a breaking point. And the only way by which we can be able to stabilize that is to get into, of course, sleep. No, we have to remember that. Again, another friend, no, reminded me that I need to sleep longer, especially when I am in a stressful situation, because that will help me a lot in trying to restore even, of course, the way I think and the pace that I actually took, that I would actually take whenever I make decisions. And it helped a lot, no? So there should be a pre-bedtime, wind down routine, turning off computers or even your phones, no? And refrain from reading emails before you sleep. Because otherwise, this can be something which is disturbing. And number five, build time into the daily schedule for breaks and connection. I think this is something that will help them get into control and at the same time cope with the uncertainty and the anxiety. No? They're also humans, even as leaders. So they can block time, check in with individuals who may need extra care or even attention, and then eventually with family and friends, and scheduling, okay, breaks for self-care and attending to personal and family needs. And then, of course, lastly, second to the last, I should say, celebrate small wins and larger victories. No? Leaders face a crisis, and when they feel stress, it may actually fixate towards the negative aspect, and that can be really be very bad. So, but of course, even in challenging situations, these are actually markers of success. No? So, acknowledge and celebrate small wins and how leadership is making a difference. So recognize that the positive can boost mood, which can help leaders improve their flexibility, open-mindedness, and even be able to enhance their creativity. And then lastly, this one, no? Um, the celebration of small wins and larger victories can help them get into something that will boost their mood. And that becomes very important, especially as they carry on their leadership activities and response and carry on in their responsibilities. So there you have it, no? So I just hope that the above had helped in equipping you with some resources as you adjust to and of course eventually embrace the new normal. So it's very important that you have to take care of yourself at this time. Try and use helpful coping strategies such as ensuring sufficient rest and respite during work or even shifts. Eat sufficient food and healthy food. Engage in physical activity. Avoid using unhelpful coping strategies such as the use of tobacco, alcohol, or other drugs. So, in the long term, this can worsen your mental and physical well being. So, remember that the COVID-19 outbreak is a unique and unprecedented scenario for many workers, particularly if they are and have not been involved in similar responses. Well, even so, no, using strategies that have worked for you in the past to manage times of stress can benefit you now. So, you are the person most likely to know how you can de stress, and you should not be hesitant in keeping yourself psychologically well. Remember, coping with the pandemic right now is not a sprint, but it's a marathon. And we have to help ourselves through. So there you have it. I hope that I was able to contribute to the ways by which we can be able to help ourselves through the pandemic. So I'm very sure you have ticked some of your lists on this one, and that's very, very important to know. So I am now ready for any questions, okay, from our audience.
What words should I say? I am speechless because I really had to go through the reflection part of your discussion, Sir Andrew. I really loved your presentation. Thank you very
Thank you,
much,
sir.
because indeed you are the best person to discuss the topic we just had. It's research and experience based sharing. And I have to admit that personally, I was touched by your insights, by your sharing, and it really made me think deeply. So I believe our audience also had that kind of experience. We are very, very grateful for your sharing of not only insights, but I think life lessons that you have had based on the things that you've been through also for the past few days or months that we are under COVID-19.
Thank you very much for the kind words, Dr. JP.
All right.
You're so nice. Thank you.
Sir, I'll just give you a few seconds to breathe before we read through the questions. And while I
Okay.
give you a few seconds to rest, please allow me
Yes.
to greet our audience because, sir, we have audiences from the entire Philippines. I haven't
Wow.
the total profile, but we also have viewers from the international uh, community. But for now, please allow me to greet first our fellow Filipinos in this webinar from our friends in Pangasinan. I have to say masantos sa kabosan at kayo amin. Salamat, tawadya kayo lamat. Our Ilocano speaking friends, agyaman kami unay na imbaga bigat kada kayo amin apo. And we also saw our friends from Pampanga. Mayapayabak po and magandang umaga. Salamat po sa inyong pagtutok from our Tagalog speaking or Filipino speaking audience. From the Visayas, we would like to say maayong buntag, maayong aga sa tanan. And our friends from Mindanao, from Zamboanga area, buenos dias a todos, muchas gracias. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pagtutok sa aming webinar series dito sa CHED Regional Office 1. And now, Sir Andrew, it's time for us to
Yes, Doc.
answer the questions of our participants this morning.
I hope I can be able to handle myself on this one. Please be kind and please be good to me. All right.
The park for you. All right, sir. Sir, we have our first question from Miss Mitch Smith. Tanong po, Sir Andre, baka kilala dito, sir. Ano po ang
Baka ako
maipapayo
yan, sir.
sa mga nakakaranas ngayon ng mental illness due to pandemic situation?
All right. Okay. Maraming salamat. Well, I have many friends who had been actually setting up groups that would help people who are in distress during the pandemic. And we have had, of course, been talking to students who might actually speak of their experiences, no, from the basic stress and all, until of course those who would actually claim that they had been diagnosed before and that the symptoms were coming out. Um, Mental illness, no, or this mental health condition is really something that has to be immediately um, handled or be actually looked into right now. And I guess there are ways by which we can be able to do that. Um, Talk, of course, ask for consultation with a psychiatrist or maybe a psychologist, clinical psychologist at that, because they are the ones who could actually help us with this. You might discover that somehow even a counselor would actually say, I might not be able to handle the concern, so they will refer you for that. So for me, lalo na, no, more than just the mental health condition that we have to be thinking of, the challenges of the pandemic is really very, very strong, no, in terms of the impact. So I suggest that they ask and look for, get consultation with a psychiatrist or maybe, of course, a psychologist. And I think there are a lot of platforms that our psychologists have actually taken, either online or face to face, which would actually be very, very helpful today. Yun
Yeah, I
po.
agree, Sir Andrew. You see, maybe it's also high time for us to really have a clear thought that depression is not a simple case, no? Kasi parang ang nangyayari pag sinabi nating psychologist, go to the psychiatrist, parang ang inclination natin parang may problema na sa pag-iisip yung tao, where in fact these people who specializes in this
Mm,
situations are there to help us rather than
mm. Yes.
bad motive or
Yeah, the
ibang.
connotations and all. You're very right, Dr. Doc JP. Indeed, no. Talking to a psychologist or even a psychiatrist should not be something that we have to fear. And we have to remember that right now, they are our friends. And they're the ones who could actually help us get through, especially when we are experiencing this one. It's never a weakness. And we should remove that kind of stigma that when you are talking to or when you refer yourself to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, then you are actually sick or anything at that. No? We have to remember these are our friends. And of course, these are the professionals who could actually help us through.
All right, sir. That's wonderful. All right, we go to the second question. Sir, this is from Miss Love Nofable. She says, thank you, Professor Macalma. In spite of being reflective and positive-minded person, there are people triggering stress. Ito, totoo ito.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
influence others to be reflective and not to put stress to others? Nako po, bato-bato sa langit.
Nako. Sana rin po hindi ako mabashed. Anyway, thank you very much. Yeah, and we cannot actually blame them if that's their outlook in life, no, but again, no, we have to look into where we can have controls, no? If we cannot be able to control them, then at least get control about how you look at the situation and actually for yourself. I've mentioned many times in my sharing that somehow it's very important, the search for our wellness and all becomes at this point in time also a personal journey, and we have to take it take it now as our responsibility to find ways by which we can create pockets of joy. And if it means that, okay, we distantiate ourselves or even, of course, stop listening to people who would stress us all the more, can help, then please do. No, I have seen friends who would actually unfriend people on social media. And for me, that's a good sign because you're getting control over that and you're trying to be kind to yourself. So it's trying to go away. It's a coping mechanism. So distantiate yourself from possible additional sources of stress because we don't need them now. What we need are people whom we can talk to, who can actually provide us with care, communicate hope, and at the same time be able to allow us to also celebrate ourselves, especially during this time.
Right. Tama, Sir Andrew. No? Parang if you cannot control them, then you can control yourself, your
Yeah.
attitude, and reaction towards the way they're treating. Diba?
Yes.
All right. Sir, this is from Sir Al Cameron Avila. Man is a social being and social interaction with other people is helpful to acquire skills related to social intelligence. Due to this pandemic, interaction gradually changed. Will this state of pandemic change such acquisition? How should we manage this?
All right. Well, that remains to be. And then, of course, eventually, in the lingo of social psychology, we have learned that we need social interaction. Again, the challenge for today, one, the first thing that we have to remember is we hope and pray that this is just temporary and soon this situation, this challenging situation will dissipate and we all go back to that physical socialization and all. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that when we miss out on physical, social interaction and all, that we cannot become sociable as individuals. I think the challenge for us is to find avenues and ways by which we can still be able to socialize, interact, and be able to learn and become sociable even during these times. So we have to find ways and be very creative at that. And we still remain to be very cordial. We maintain trusting relationships and we remain positive in terms of these personal and professional relationships. Soon, when this will all be gone, this will all be done, then eventually we can go back to other modes and we can probably go back to the old ways of doing socialization, which can actually be of help to us.
All right. Thank you, sir. We move on to the next question. This is from Mr. Achromatic, CHED Regional Office 1. As a fresh graduate, how can we have a positive mindset for our careers, especially economic crashes are imminent?
This is such a challenging question. And I empathize with you, no? I sympathize and empathize with you. Many times I had been thinking of our new graduates, those who would not even experience um, the actual graduation ceremony. But of course, they are declared graduates by our universities, our colleges. But somehow the celebration is will have to be postponed, no? Probably in January or next year. Now, I understand that starting a career right now is very challenging as some positions are actually being closed, some companies are trying to be more selective, and then eventually the distance of transportation would actually be here. So, well, but I hope that this would not stop them from still trying to look into how they can make this jump start in their careers. It may be delayed for some time because of the limitations that we are in, but it doesn't necessarily mean that careers will also stop. It should continue to prosper and grow. And I think as our young people right now are very much into the internet, they have a lot of sources of information, then they might as well try to look into that, communicate with other young professionals, or probably take mentoring from seasoned mentors or seasoned leaders so that they can be able to look into where to probably start your career from. So these limitations that are set by this pandemic should not stop them, no, from doing career and be able to somehow, no, prepare themselves for this one. So again, it's embracing, adjusting to. Once they are able to do that, then eventually they can make the necessary steps towards helping themselves in jumpstarting a very good and a promising career in the future. It never stops. This pandemic is not the reason by which we will all start dying or probably even not starting our careers. Life should continue. All right. Yeah. Okay. I hope I am clear. Um, well, how could we discern stressors? No? That's challenging. No? But of course, eventually, we have to remember that one challenge for us today is to be uh, intelligent enough in trying to determine what is a stressor and what is not. And even when they have already been seen as a stressor, then try to ask yourself, is this something that I have control on? Is there something that I can do to change the situation? Now, regarding the second question, is self-care a kind of a windscript? Yes, especially right now. I guess in the many slides that I have shown, self-care had always been emphasized a lot of times. So we can be able to do that. I guess that's one thing that we have to ensure to give ourselves. So how could we differentiate self from a person who has a narcissistic personality? Well, this has been defined no, by books in abnormal psychology or even the DSM. And it would be easy to spot someone who is narcissistic. But we have to be careful because narcissistic personality can pass for a diagnosis. And people who may seem to exhibit a few of the characteristics of people who are really narcissistic may not yet necessarily be considered narcissistic. We have to be careful about the label. So, well, you know very well when you are narcissistic, so self-centered, everything around revolves around you. There's self-love and all, which is different when you do self. All right. This is very challenging, no? But anyway, if we can, if you know, no, that you can be a source of stress to other people in your work, then better not go. Well, anyway, joking aside, you have to. This is the time, no. This is a good time to actually bring out the best in us, and this is also the good time to become a good neighbor to everyone. So more than doing social distancing and all, we have to also make sure that we become a source of hope and peace and calmness through this time. This is not the time to bully people. This is not the time not to be good to people, but this is the time to be good to them. Remember, we do not know the enemy. We are all in this together. Let's build a stronger community so that at least we can be able to harness and at the same time make ourselves even stronger amidst the fight no, in this pandemic. Sir, I didn't get you, sir.
Sir, on behalf of
Okay.
CHED Regional Office 1, again, we would like to express our deepest gratitude to you because of your time. You shared your knowledge selflessly. We learned a lot. And hopefully, again, I would repeat, God willing, we can see each other physically so that, again, we can thank you personally and express how grateful we are for the wonderful gift of Professor Andrew, not only to SLU, but to humanity. Thank you so much for
Thank you
all
very much.
you do.
Thank you
Sir,
very much, Sir JP.
any concluding statements for our audience from the Philippines and from the entire globe?
Okay, if you allow me, um, well, let's try to always build our positivity. Um, we actually started with feeling a positive emotion so that we can live a happier and more successful life. Importantly, I challenge everyone to find your happy place. Okay, find that and try to stay in that, and then eventually try to do away with some negative and high threat languages. And at the same time, this one, no, I'd like us to harness self-care, and so that of course eventually when we are able to do this one, then we are able to help ourselves through and we are able to cope. And lastly, my take on this, it would take our knowledge, the IQ, our emotional quotient, our SQ and our adversity quotient to build another Q that we need to have. That's our NNQ, or the new normal quotient. If we are able to nurture that, then we can be able to deal with and be able to embrace this new normal. Maraming salamat po. And please, let's help one another. Uh, my last request is that probably we can just post what is your takeaway, from this sharing. Try to share it on the comment section so that, of course, I can read that later on and then others would also hear from you. With that said, these are my references and I say maraming salamat for Ched Region 1, sorry, for the trust and confidence. Sir JP, you had been a very good moderator. Thank you for helping me through.
Thank you so much, Professor Macalma. And again, God bless you. Please stay.
Okay po. Maraming salamat din.
All right, dear friends, there you have it. We really had a wonderful time with Professor Macalma. And as I have said earlier, I have to admit that personally was touched by his sharing of insights, and it challenged me to improve myself, not only for myself, but for others. So avoid being stressors. And if stress comes, then let's just have a positive outlook in life. All is passing. All shall be well. Just keep the positive thinking and motivation going on. All right. For our next session this morning, we have invited our friend from Zhejiang University in China to discuss to us what are the best practices of Zhejiang University when it comes to managing the school, their employees, and their students during the time of COVID-19 pandemic. And to do this, we are to shift to another link so that we can connect with our next speaker. But before that, I would like to say goodbye for now because I would have to call in the next facilitator for our next session. Our next facilitator is the soon-to-be Dr. Ricky A. Serra, Education Supervisor of CHED Regional Office 1, to be the next person facilitating the next session. So we'll just have a few minutes, 3 to 5 minutes break. It's a time for you to refresh. We'll see you soon. I'll just be at the backstage watching and being with you throughout the day. God bless everyone. See you in 3 to 5 minutes.